if somebody's labeling themselves as not good at math, if they're verbalizing that, they probably have something traumatic that happened during those formative years when they were learning math in school or whatever that was. Hi, this is Kathy Ulistala with UpwardHouse Learning, and today we're going to talk about the difficulties that students have with logical thinking and mathematics when they have a background in trauma. To start out, I'm sure that many of you have people in your life who struggle for one reason or another, and I suppose even in multiple subjects, but they struggle with things that are of a more logical, in the more logical realm. So many of my students, just a quick reminder on some of my background experience. I taught a year in Finland, 8 years in New Orleans, it was in Jefferson Parish, just outside New Orleans, and then 2 years in Temple, Texas, and 4 years in Belton, Texas. And I became special ed certified in Texas, as I've been working with students since leaving the classroom, the public school classroom, and going into tutoring and homeschool assistance. I have seen, especially with more flexibility in how I approach things with students, I've seen students being able to start to process their trauma. And as they processed through their trauma, we saw these incredible gains in their logical thinking and ability to do math. So let me just tell you a little bit of background about a couple of those situations. So I'm not going to name the students, but I'll try to talk about them clearly. So one young man, he was 15 when I started working with him, and his mother related to me that he had gone through some trauma in public middle school. He had been bullied. He is on the autistic spectrum and didn't understand that some kids that he wanted to be his friend, he didn't understand that they were making fun of him. And so he thought he was building friendship, but they were actually setting him up for different types of teasing and getting him to do things that were getting him in trouble, or things that they would then laugh with their friends about. And so he didn't understand why someone would do something like that, and there was a lot of emotional struggle that came from that, and that happened in 7th grade. In a separate conversation with the mother on another occasion, she mentioned to me that he used to love math. And he used to love math, but when he got to 7th grade, for some reason, about halfway through the year, he just started to hate it. And his scores went down, and he wasn't able to do math anymore. And I remembered, it didn't click with me really until I was listening to another friend talk about when their mother-in-law had a stroke. And she mentioned the common knowledge that the last skill to come back when recovering from a stroke is to be able to do math and logical reasoning and calculation and multiple steps, procedures, those kinds of things. And it clicked. When our brains go through a trauma, then it makes the logical thinking more difficult. When our brains are in trauma mode, or when we're highly emotional, it's as if the logical part of our brain unplugs and isn't able to work. And so we start operating with our animal brain. And until those emotions subside and they're dealt with, that logical brain can't replug in. I started working with these individuals, the kids, on if their families were willing to, if they were interested, talking to God about some of the issues that they had gone through and starting them on a conversation with God. It might be, maybe it was some people might prefer a conversation with a counselor. Some people might prefer conversations with parents that are trusted, those kinds of things, or even a teacher, a tutor. And so we would talk about the issues that had gone on and help them see truth in that and start to get into a zone where they felt safe again. And if they felt safe, and they had started to process and understand what had happened and start to surrender some of those things and not hold on, like bracing for the next impact, they really, really started to be able to move forward in math and logical thinking in multiple areas in their lives. That's where I focus in the classroom and in my time with students, and whether it's homeschool, whether it's tutoring, whether it's with a group of students. I focus on if a student is struggling, what is the root of that struggle, and we work on some of maybe it's a lie they've believed about themselves or a fear that's come about because of something, and we start to address that lie or address that fear and shine truth on that, and which then kind of breaks those chains that are binding their feet from stepping forward. So in short, this goes along with our blog on the website about how logical thinking is much more difficult when we have a background in trauma. And so addressing that trauma through counseling or some type of method can unlock our potential to think logically. That excuse, I'm not good at math, I bet if somebody's labeling themselves as not good at math, if they're verbalizing that, they probably have something traumatic that happened during those formative years when they were learning math in school or whatever that was that caused their logical brain to disengage and acting in survival mode. So let's address those emotional needs and unlock our students' potential. So feel free to comment below, contact us, email, or through the contact us button on the website. Get more insight. We'd love to sit down and talk with you. It's not neuroscience. It's not rocket science. It's not hard. It's just kind of talking and analyzing and figuring out, okay, where do we start? How do we begin to unlock our children's potential? Okay. This has been Kathy Ulastala with our blog on unlocking our logical potential by healing our traumas. Have a great day. Bye.